Cool stuff. You are live. I am live. We are live. Hey, hey. How you doing today, Rieta?
Oh, it's been a long day. I can't, I was sitting here this morning thinking, I can't believe almost a whole year has gone by of us just working from home and, yeah, this whole pandemic thing happening and so on. I can't believe it's been a year. Where did the time go? It just flew past completely.
Definitely. I also feel the same. It's whizzed by. I can hardly believe 2020 is behind us, let alone the month of January. We even passed the halfway mark. So yeah, totally, totally insane. So yeah,
Yeah, we've just been so busy with getting all our students into the property. We're actually almost full. I think we have space for two or three students more, and it's been crazy busy with that this year, much busier than last year. So yeah, so we're soldiering on, and now I'm just looking for more.
so more rent to rent deals so that you can put your students in there. I like that. I still love that strategy the most. But nonetheless, here we are tonight. So I want to say to everybody, welcome. I trust that you are doing well and that you are ready for this. Fred says can't wait. I mean, Fred has been here for a minute. So for a long minute. So let's get into that. So I'd like to say my name is Genevieve Stafford Jack. Start that again. My name is Genevieve Stafford Jack, and I'm in property. I'm a property entrepreneur as well as a property mentor. Over to you.
Well, I'm Rita van der Rooyen, and I used to be a corporate dinosaur. Now I am a property anything, anything around property business, making money for myself, doing it for myself. That is who I am now. So yeah, it's been almost a few years now leaving the corporate space, and it's still awesome every day.
Absolutely. And tonight we are here across different platforms, both on the Genevieve Stafford Jack channel, on the M5 Property Addicts channel, as well as the M5 Property Varsity Facebook pages, etc. Let's just not name the whole grocery list. We're here just to share with you guys, trusting that you're going to enjoy what we're going to be talking about. And it really is starting out in property investing. So let's jump into it. And wherever you are, what we would love in the interim is for you to drop comments in and say hello, hi, give us a something, and also let us know that you can hear us. Okay. So tonight we're really going to be talking about getting started in property investing. I remember just over 4 years ago, my hubby came home and said, babe, we're going through to a property seminar, and a property seminar, they'll be talking about property investing. I thought he lost the plot. He probably had money stashed somewhere from the lotto that I don't know about, or probably inherited some money. So that one was going through my head at that time, because at that time, our side hustle had failed us dismally. And every day we were just growing in debt. And I'm wondering, dude, what do you mean we're going through to a property investing seminar? Rita, how did property investing find you, or how did you find property investing?
Oh, after trying many things, well, property investing didn't. Yeah, property investing found me. I think I was attracted to property, or properties caught me. It entrapped me. Let's say it
I
right.
love it. It
I,
seduced you and lured you in.
before I even knew what I was doing, I was accidentally buying properties and keeping them and renting them, not planning it at all. Just buying my parents' house and then my house, and then the house from my mother again when she was retiring and so on. And I ended up accumulating a couple. Sounds so weird, but that
I
is the
like
way
that.
it worked. Yeah, and I just never sold them, and that's how I started in property. But then obviously I really got into the professional way of doing it. Once I got my property education, went to the same seminar that you're talking about, and yeah, I said to my husband, "Oh, I'm going to this property thing," and he said, "Good luck with that." So, so I went by myself and a friend from work, and the two of us went there, and that's where the journey started.
It's amazing stuff here. And that for me, I believe is an awesome beginning because you and I met in the classroom. In fact, I remember TJ saying to me, this lady looks like somebody I worked with years ago at KPMG. And yeah, and I'm like, whatever, my guy, we're here to meet people. Let's do what we need to do. So this is where Rieta, myself, and TJ met. And little did we know at that time that many, many years later that we will be involved in business and multiple businesses that is across in and around property. So it's actually a very fascinating space that I find that when you get into the training room, don't close your eyes and just shut your head down or put your head down. Look around you, make friends with people around you because they're definitely there. You don't know who's going to be your next business partner. So we
Yeah.
got into property investing to help ourselves get out of the financial mess that we had gotten into by actually getting into the passive income, into the active income strategies. And this is some of the things that we'd like to touch on this evening. Rieta, what was your like primary reason and how property investing entrapped you into this whole circle of life?
Well, I think there were two main reasons, right? So the one is always financial. How can I just make a little bit extra money? Because I've been in that corporate environment for 20 years, and I was like, oh, my salary, can I just not double? I need more money. And obviously, they laughed at me when I said I want double my salary. So
As they would.
I thought they were going to have me committed. But anyway, so that was obviously one reason. But then the other reason I think as well for me was that I was just so tired of just listening to myself complaining every single day about my boss. Why didn't I get that promotion? Why didn't I get the good increase? Um, why do I even have to ask if I'm allowed to please can I go and take my child to the doctor? I mean, really, those are basic rights that we should have as human beings to be free and just do that if we need to do it. And I think for me, I was just so tired of listening to myself complaining, and I'm like, well, nobody else is going to come and rescue me. I better do it myself. So and that's when I really started to search that together. I think once that came together with the finance money situation, yeah, then that was the final push to just get me out of my complaining cycle.
And you know what? That's a thing we don't really pick up. So kudos on you for picking up. You know, we just think it's a normal chit chatter that we go through on a daily basis. We complain about the same cycle of life that we're in, and we don't really realize that. And I wonder how many people here this evening actually relate to that. Have you gotten into that space where you don't think you're complacent, but if you really have to sit down and actually understand what you are saying or listen to what you're saying, you then start realizing, hey, maybe I'm in denial here. That I don't think that I'm not complacent. Sometimes we get to a point where we're tired of being tired. And I know that feeling as well because I remember when I left work, it was way before even the property started paying off in any shape, form, or manner because I was just tired of being tired. But FYI, guys, don't be Genevieve. Don't do what Genevieve did. Leaving work and starting a business together with doing coaching. It is not healthy. And I realized my epic mistake in hindsight. But I'm also quite glad because it shaped me in my journey as to where I was going to. So what I'd like to find out from you, Rieta, here you are. You started your property training, you've gotten into property coaching because you needed somebody to actually hold your hand through the process. What was the first things that you decided from this whole 3 days, sitting here, listening from 9 to 7, this person teach us, having your chit chatters in the classroom from this whole time together? What was the first thing that you had in your mind to do around property investing?
I think, it was always that. So you listen. Well, number one, my mind was just blown. I didn't realize you can do so much with property. Okay, so that was like quite shocking to begin with. So, oh, you can do flips. Oh, you can do this. You can do that, and so on. But I think, sort of for me, what jumps to mind after those classes is that those guys are really good at, if you're an employee and at the end of the year you get a bonus. Now, to think that you can do two property flips in 1 year and make double your bonus on each one of those flips, that's 4 times your bonus. So that's very tempting. So that's sort of the first thing um, that came to mind, that just jumps at you. Although I ended up thinking I was doing a flip, and then I ended up renting the place out, and it worked out better. But that was sort of the enticing thing about it, was that sort of strategy. But I wasn't sure. I mean, in the beginning, I was literally looking for a flip. I couldn't find anything. Then I was looking for student accommodation. Then I was looking at rentals. Then I was looking at, I didn't know what to choose. I didn't know what strategy would work for me, and why would I even choose one strategy over the other. And I actually wasted quite a lot of time. It took me 4 months before, and lots of petrol and seeing properties and what before I finally made an offer. So I
All
think,
right.
yeah. So for me, it was, I thought I wanted to do a flip, but then when I went out into the field and the reality now hit me, I was like, is this property even good for a flip, or is it not? So I think, yeah, that was sort of the beginnings for me.
No, I certainly hear where you're coming from, because I mean, suddenly we've got this buffet, and dare I call it a buffet, right? It feels like a buffet to me. Yeah, you've suddenly got this buffet on, oh my days, I can do all these things in property investing. I recall my husband and I sitting down saying, okay, so we overextended at the banks, our debt is growing daily. How the heck do we actually start? And having paid the coaching and whatnot, the first lesson we actually learned is that most property investors go on holiday during December, January. So we started our coaching early in February, and I promise you it was a bummer, but it was also a blessing in disguise, because during that January month we got a chance to write down all those different concepts we had question marks about, because it's a lot of information to take in. I remember us sitting down individually, just writing down stuff, because we learn differently. And then I'm not somebody that just automatically would go to YouTube. Okay, let's correct that one. I used to be somebody that was not automatically just going to YouTube. Okay. And I remember at that time, something about YouTube, I was attracted to it. So in early 2017, yeah, I am trying to understand a few of these different concepts, because I've got this huge picture, and I started listening to a lot of YouTube videos. And the second thing that we did within that particular space is that we said, to get out of where we are, first, we need to sell the property that is actually bleeding us. And that was our side hustle, because we had had a farm. And we needed to start putting things in place to literally get this bloodsucker away, to get to this amount of money. Like, darn it, can we actually just get to selling this property to understand what our debt figure looks like? And that is a daunting task. So one of the challenges that I would like to share with everybody, welcome Sheila, welcome Maureen, Reheba, sweetie, I'm going to butcher your name. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to say Rile or Hile. My apologies there. So welcome Fred, welcome everybody that has dropped comments in the comments below. So I remember the one thing that stood out to me in that month is when I had to get my finances in order. So the one challenge I would like to put to you all this evening is, get your finances in order. Actually open your budget to understand what you needed to be doing. Because Rieta went in with the idea of, maybe I'll get the flips. I'll double my bonus. That's the money that she was looking for. We had gone in to understand, can we sell our our actual liability that was sucking us dry. So we needed to take care of the immediate thing that was here in front of us. So sometimes that immediate thing is within our budget. And a lot of times people don't realize that sometimes your budget is the bloodsucker, because in there you've got these random line items, right? Like you've got DSTV and you've got Netflix. Like, I don't want to play a hate. I'm just saying. Sometimes we've got this Woolies account that we don't even understand why we have. I was that person. These are my confessions. I had this Woolies account that I tried to understand. Why did I open it? Why do I even have it? And when do I actually use it? And as simple as that may sound, but that was one of the most phenomenal things that we did to work through the things we didn't have. Because at the end of the day, the money that we didn't have, because it's really money you don't have, literally became the money when we shifted our budget around that helped us fund our property tools, like Lightstone and TPN. And all of a sudden, we had money for these property tools. Isn't that the funniest thing, Rieta? Have you ever looked at your budget in that particular way?
Yeah. Well, I think for me the eye opener was that I actually applied for a bond at for a property that I wanted to do, and I ended up with a bond originator that was very pedantic. I mean, she would go literally line by line through your bank statement. And like you would normally put your expenses in, and then you think, oh, I spent so much on takeaways and I spent so much on entertainment and petrol and what, and you'll just put it down. But this woman went and she literally, line by line, took all
Oh
my
my
items
days.
and she added it up. Okay. And then she's like, "Well, you know what? We can't give you this loan because your the money that you spend on restaurants and takeaways." And I'm like, "What? Really?" And then I went and I drilled down, and I couldn't believe. I mean, it's so easy just going from school, going home, and the kids are hungry and complaining, and you're like, "Ah, I'll just get them some burgers quickly, or get
Mm.
some or whatever." And that amount just added up so much that I think she kind of opened up your eyes as to how much money you're actually spending. Because we're a family of five. At that time, it was my mom. I would take my brother, my sister, her family, and whenever you go, then it's all of a sudden it's 1,000 rand, 2,000 rand bill, and you do that a couple of times a month. What do you end up with? You know what I mean? And I also just realized that after this whole lockdown thing happened in March, that my money it just lasts. And I was like, what? And again, it's literally just because of these unnecessary things that's convenient for you, but it just chows away at that budget like you cannot believe. So yeah, so those type of things you always have to go back and look. But what did I actually spend my money on? Where did it actually disappear to? Um, and I think for me, the eye opener was that bond originator that told me these things. And like, you've got so much on subscriptions. I'm like, what do I even subscribe to? I had no idea. And I went and I looked, and I was like, oh, I'm actually wasting a lot of money on these things. And and that just made me more aware to go in and clean out once every couple of months. Just go in, clean out all the crap you don't need anymore.
Very true. It's so funny that you bring up a bond originator, because when we were applying for the farm, you have your 3 months bank statement, and the bond originator that was helping us was hysterical because eventually they had to ask us for 6 months bank statements. And she said to me, "You are so predictable." And I thought to myself, okay, I didn't know how whether to take this as a compliment or what would, like, why. And I'm like, okay, so tell me more. And then she says, every month, I can imagine you sitting with an Excel sheet or opening a book because your line items that you pay are exactly the same line items in exactly the same order. Okay. And then she says, then there's this selection of about 7 to 10 things that just randomly happen. And I could imagine that you've got a pocket of money that you deal with these other things. But I laughed so hard that she said 70% of your budget is managed and you know exactly where it's going to.
That's
And
very
so for me, that was like quite cool. But
that's
then
like
I think,
that's like 20% of my budget.
but the crazy part though is that some of my madness I also budgeted very well, which is like pay some random stupid Woolies card that I shouldn't have had in the first place. So it's the most insane thing. So sometimes the good things that we do, we
You
tell
party your
ourselves it's
mind.
the right thing, exactly, isn't it? So, ladies and gents, I really just want to say, in that, one of the things that I would love that you take from here is that when you're sitting down to actually start something new, sit down and actually understand your budget at hand. To understand what is it that I actually do and that I don't do. And that already starts creating a measure of breathing space for you, because sometimes we don't have the things, like some of those things we shouldn't have. I mean, like with the Woolies account, I just went to go and close it. I was like, what the heck? Yeah, I am preaching against contracts, cell phone contracts, but I've got a Woolies account. Like, who does that? Fortunately, I wasn't buying the chicken. I wasn't buying Woolies chicken on the on the card. I'm just saying, just throwing that one out there. So what I'd love us to do, Rieta, just sharing with everybody, when we're getting started, it's good to get into your classroom, get into understanding what coaching gives you, but also understanding where you are financially. Because when you understand where you are financially, it goes into the strategy that you would get into. And you, at one stage, Rieta, like you shared, you were looking at that active income, which is doing the flips. We were looking at the creative finance, which is sourcing, doing joint ventures, back to back deals, and anything that didn't require money directly from us. And that's where we decided we need to learn to thrive. Now, when we understand what our strategy is, it really just gives us a better insight into, okay, so which area am I actually going to go and buy property? And here's the logic behind this. And Rita, I would love to hear from you as well on this particular piece. When we choose our strategy, right, it's like me saying, I'm going to get a Airbnb, right? I'm going to look for a property that I could buy to do Airbnb. But in and around my area, there's no anything of Airbnb happening. I haven't done my research on Airbnb. And eventually, when I do get to doing my research on Airbnb, I start realizing that in the area that I'm in, it's not lucrative. But sometimes people go and buy the property and they say, I'm going to make it 1, 2, 3 without doing the actual research around that particular strategy. And that's why I say strategy matters. I remember there was a couple of deals that I'd looked for within the sourcing space. I already knew I'm going to find deals that are up to 300,000 where our civil servants stay, the maximum of 400,000, because these are the places where people rent quite a bit. And when I do sell that to an investor, I'm looking for investors that are dealing with passive income. So I really hope that you guys catch how your strategy that you are interested in property investing literally dictates where you should actually start looking for your particular property. So when you started Rita and you decided to do the flips, but eventually landed up with rental, how did that work out for you, your strategy and your area?
So my plan on it about a strategy was really based around, well, I want to do the strategy that's going to get me the most money.
All
So
right,
I
nothing
didn't.
wrong with that.
Well, the problem is that, if you think about it like that, you're going to chase everything. So it's really about, but sitting back and thinking, but what is it? Yes, I want to do a flip, but um, you know, what type of areas, what type of properties will sell quickly?
Mm-hmm.
And for me it was difficult to. But how do I know that this thing is going to sell quickly? How do
With
I
you.
know it's a good area for a flip? How do I know that this is a good area for rentals? And I think back then, especially for rentals, we didn't really. I don't know if I'm sure TPN was around, but I wasn't aware of it, and so on. So I couldn't really analyze that properly, and so I ended up buying a property that I thought was good for a flip, and then I couldn't sell. So now what do you do? So luckily I learned you must be able to at least make profit on the one and break even on the other one, or vice versa, or at least hopefully make profit on both rentals and selling. So I was at least still making some money with my rental as well, a little bit, not enough to um, carry the headache of that little property there. So eventually I did end up selling it, but much later. So it's about, how do you know that an area is good for a certain strategy? For students, it's easy.
Mm.
The closer to the university, the better. It's simple like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very easy. Okay, don't even think about it. The closer, the better. Done. Um, will it be for a flip? How do
Mm.
you know that a property will sell quickly? You can make it as pretty as you want to, as beautiful as you want to. If that area is not an area where people buy, how do you know that? How do you know that a certain area is better for people that want to invest long term because they're going to get money from rentals, but their property values will. How do you know that? And I
With
think
you.
that was my biggest challenge, is to say, but what area will work for my specific strategy? And even though I was thinking about flipping, I didn't know really which areas to look at. And I eventually just kind of just looked for a flip house. Doesn't matter where it was, which was obviously the wrong thing to do.
As we learn.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's really important to get into the detail, which I think my expectations of my 3 days training was also a little bit wonky, because I was expecting to get all the knowledge in 3 days. Like, hello, that's never gonna happen. Then a whole new place.
Isn't
No.
it? Isn't it?
So I think it's important to, once you get into it, to really deep dive into that specific topic. And I didn't have any deep dive guidance or training at that stage. So I kind of learned trial by error. But it's actually a science. It doesn't have to be a guessing game. There
Yeah.
are very specific tools that you can look at, and you can, with a 90% plus accuracy, say whether a strategy will work in a specific area.
With
Um,
you.
so definitely it doesn't have to be guesswork.
Absolutely. And I like what you mentioned there, Rieta. Back in the day, I remember buying my first two-bed, one bath. And that was prior to the property investing education. And I thought I was doing the right thing. But when you go through the education, you start realizing, oh my days, if if only I knew better. But you thank your lucky stars at that time that nothing skew goes along. And like you also shared now as well, that so many times people believe that you can learn everything in a 1 day training or a 3 day training, or even sometimes people expect to say, tell me everything I need to know now. And then you actually think, yo, if I start talking now, the wheels are gonna fall off the bus. I've got the stamina to do that. I've got the vocabulary to do that. I've got that chutzpah to do that. But where do you actually start and stop for the next person to actually understand all of this? And that's what I enjoyed only in hindsight of the training, and then why they separated the training from the coaching. And that's when I thought, oh, okay, it's not only just for them to make money, because that was my assumption, because we paid over 100,000 for our property investing education. But in hindsight, I was shouldn't say it out loud. But in hindsight, I'm actually quite thankful though, because this is when we start learning. You know what? At some point, you're going to pay school fees. whether it's to get the education to apply it or just do it on its own, on your own. And I remember after those 3 days, I barely slept. those that weekend, it was a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I barely slept. I was walking around like a zombie because I thought, if I dare sleep, what if my brain just shuts down and I don't process information in the right way? Okay, I'm an overthinker. Okay. So I was like, what if it doesn't process things? What if I end up oversleeping and then I'm going to be late for training? And then if I just miss 5 minutes of training, the world is going to come to an end. So yeah, it's a very fascinating space when you get into property investing education. But I digress. One of the things that I was thinking about, like, what are the important things to share with everybody tonight? And I really hope that as we've been sharing about how we got into property, what we assumed about property, how we got into the strategies that we're in, and how we decided, okay, this is the property we're going to actually get. If you had to share with everybody today, Rieta, what are the three things that come to your mind? What are the three biggest, like, aha moments that you've had within property?
Um, sure. Now you're asking me a difficult one. I think the number one thing for me is that um, no matter how much you think you know, the next deal will have something you didn't know or didn't prepare for. So they are all different, they are all unique, and they all have their own flavors. And it was sort of to kind of realize that you can't prepare 100% for something, and you're going to have to at some point just jump into something and know and trust that you can make it work, no matter what this 20 or 30% uncertainty on is it going to work, is it not, what's all the things that can go wrong. If you keep on just thinking about that, then you're never going to do anything. So I think that was the one thing for me. The other big aha moment for me was that when I realized that you can actually um, make money in property without
Mhm.
having money. I really took it took a long time for me to really understand that. And you think you understand it until you actually go through the motions and you're like, oh, it is there. It is actually real. It can happen.
So
And
true.
yeah, so that's, I think, is a big belief system that I had, because I always felt like, oh, the banks are going to catch me out if I apply for something I can't actually afford it. But meanwhile, it's like, um,
Mm.
yeah. So that for me was one of the things. And I think the what would be the third one? The third one I think would be that would have to be in student accommodation, right? So I always thought, student accommodation, it's something that you just do, you get a property and it runs itself. And yeah, you're going to have maintenance issues and all that, but it's easy, I think, is what I always thought. But that was a big aha moment that there's always a trade off between the difficulty of doing something and the returns that you're going to get from it. So student accommodation is challenging, but the reward for that, I can't now go back to normal properties anymore. It's like I can't, not after I've experienced that full cycle. So whenever the guys talk about, oh, this is such a fantastic deal, I'm like, yeah, I'll stick to students.
It's like, do you do you all by yourself?
It's like, I'm like, yeah, you go play with that, it's fine. But then it's really good returns, right? I'm talking about really good, but compared to student accommodation, it's like, nah, for that amount of effort, I'll just do students.
I love it. I love it. And I liked what you shared because your number two is my number one. And I'll tell you why. I remember the speaker, Leroy, was standing in the front and he spoke. irritated as heck. Why am I at the seminar if I can't invest in property because I got no money? Okay. And I had to get to this point that, okay, you're telling me, how does property investment work? You're telling me that there's these different strategies, but now where am I going to start because I got no money? Like just, And then he said, no money down deal. Now, here's a joke that I don't tell often. I remember when I was signing up for the training, I said to myself, this guy, if he was lying, it's going to be me and him. After this training, it's going to be me and him. So I was waiting patiently for this no money down strategy. I was waiting with my whole heart to understand what goes into it. And in the classroom, I understood it theoretically. In action, I still was grappling to terms as like, what do you mean? And just like you said, when it started happening, when TJ wrote on that OTP and we put 1,000 rand down as a deposit on a whole property, and then there was an investor that came in with the other 159,000. Dude, the 4th of August when that thing was accepted, I'll never forget it ever. Because it was my biggest moment, like, yo, this thing is working. And then the most funniest thing happened between the August and the December. There was like 4 or 5 more deals that just happened and we didn't question it. And my biggest aha moment from there is that learning a strategy and doing a strategy is two different things. When you actually do the thing that you learn, the little roadblocks that you learn in between, you come out a brand new person on the other side, and your confidence is second to none. And that was my first biggest moment. My second aha moment, and I don't know if you like me, I didn't know that Lightstone or TPN or any sort of property report existed to help me understand what is sold in the neighborhood. I always understood that the real estate agent is going to tell me and they're going to tell me the truth. Well,
Oh, that's funny.
well, about that, didn't quite turn out that way. But when I got to understanding this tool that we are now investing in while we shut down the Woolies account and all sorts of manner of evil in our budgets, and it created money enough for us to get the tool to actually do the work correctly, I was blown away with running numbers. I was totally blown away with running numbers. And my aha moment is that you can go through so many deals and you can look at so many things with the naked eye, but there's nothing like going through a deal calculator to guide you in terms of your thinking, in terms of the things that you need to be asking the real estate agent for. And it was because of numbers. I struggled, and it was also because of numbers. When I overcame, I was able to scream from the rooftop what I do. And that was my second aha moment. And my third one is people are people. Because I was in the creative finance space, and you need to talk to people to raise money or to do a joint venture or to sell a deal or to do a back-to-back deal, whatever creative finance strategy I was in, I realized people are people. And all we really need to navigate our deal is to have a conversation. And that for me was something brilliant that stood out, because I realized I complicated negotiations in my mind. I thought if I give a cheeky offer, this person is going to tell me to go away. I thought that in as much as the deal calculator helped me get an understanding, I thought, ooh. And then I realized people are people. If we really just talk to each other and say, this is what's on the table and this is why, it opens a conversation that many people would not have ordinarily jumped in. And so for me, that was when I learned so well that, you know what, when it comes to starting in property investing, there are tools that are going to help us identify this is a deal. And it's going to show us, like you were saying just now, Rieta, it's going to show us whether we're going to make a profit or break even, or whether we're going to break even and then make a profit, or make a profit in both strategies. But that deal calculator, your reasoning that you'll have in conversation with people, is the actual way that you start realizing, if I know my numbers, I know that this is a deal. And I wonder how many people struggle with that. I would love to hear in the comments below, are you struggling with understanding how to find a deal, or maybe how to run your numbers, or to make sense of, when you run the numbers, what makes it a deal or not? I totally would love to hear that one. Rita, what I'm also wanting to, like, I'm full of questions this evening, because, this is not a one-sided conversation. So what the other thing that I'm wanting to understand from you, as we wait for the comments or any questions to come through, is that if somebody has to ask you, Rita, what is the one thing you can tell me today that will help me in my property investing journey? What would that one thing be? If there's a one thing for you.
Okay, I
Tough
always
question there. It came up.
no, no. You know what? There is actually only one thing, and for me, it's really about um, once you made the commitment in your head that you're going to do this, you have to follow that thinking with action. When I
Mm,
started, it was like, okay, I did the training now, but I didn't know what to do next.
mm,
I was like, "Oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? I'm waiting for my coach because he's not available this week. I can only see him next week. But what now? Now I'm going to sit back and wait for him to be available. No, you
not going to
start
work.
day one, you start immediately and you do something. For 2 weeks, all I did was just go through pages and pages and pages of Property 24 and private property. Just looking at, but it's action. You are looking at stuff that you want to get into. You are trying to analyze deals. Will it work? Will it not work?
Mm,
Go to the property. Even though you're not planning to actually buy it, you're actually meeting a real estate agent in the area that you want to look at. If you don't know, if nothing else, on weekends we got into the car, and for our Sunday afternoon drive, we went to the neighborhoods and the streets that I was interested in. And I was like, I wonder what's happening in that area. Let's go take a drive. Um, and literally just taking stupid, silly actions like that every single day. But it keeps your mind focused on what you want to do. It makes you feel, and you are actually moving forward every day towards whatever it is, your goal, whatever it is what you that
mm.
you achieve, and it keeps the momentum going. In December, like you say, it's like, rich people can go on holiday in December. So I was like, my coach was not available in December. And I thought, you know what? If I have to do nothing now for a whole month is going to go by. I can't lose a
Mm.
whole.
Isn't
I
it
have,
just
I have to continue, and I just continued looking at properties, viewing properties, meeting estate agents, talking to them, doing numbers, even though I didn't know if it was correct or not correct. I just did the numbers anyway, and I just continued doing that. And I think that January, on the 2nd or 3rd of January that year, I found my first deal
nice?
because of me lying in bed, putting my baby to sleep because she was still very small at that time. And I was in bed lying and putting her to sleep, and I was looking at where can I find a contractor to give me a quote for a property on my cell phone in bed. And I found the contractor, and then the contractor eventually um, got me my actual first property that I signed for. So if it wasn't for that, in that time, they were the only people available to work in that time, because contractors also like to close down in December. So if it wasn't for me taking action while other people are on holiday, I wouldn't have found them. I wouldn't have found that deal. So it's really just about, just do something, physically do something, read something, view places, whatever. That is my single most important thing that I can tell you.
Wonderful. I like what you say, because it all goes back to that, right? before I throw in my something, um, Fred has asked the question. Let's just begin from number one. What is a deal? So I'll give a definition and you can give your definition. We get so used to the words around this discipline that we forget about starting with simple questions. So, Fred, that's a brilliant question. In property, when we're talking about a deal, we're talking about a property. We wanting to know this particular property, is it going to give you a measure of profit, right? Then you know this is a deal, which means I can go ahead and buy this property and do whatever strategy I need to do with it to make money from it. And that's really just the basic terms on how I would like to give a definition of a deal. Rita, what would your definition be?
Yeah, I think um, that is exactly that. It is property. It can either be the actual buying of the property and for yourself. It can be to do a buy or a sell of a property, or to introduce something to a property or whatever. As long as it's something related. When we refer to a deal, it's a property, and whatever that transaction is that you're doing, a buy, a sell, a referral to someone else, it involves obviously profit for you. And then obviously in a deal, it's never just one party in that transaction or that deal or that thing that you're doing. There's also other people involved in it. So you need to make sure that there is benefit in that to everybody in all the parties involved. The agent must make money, you must make money, the seller must make money, and then that is the best deal if everybody is happy with it.
Absolutely. So, Fred, I trust that from both perspectives that we were able to define just so that you can actually see. Just remember, as long as there's profit that comes from this property that you're going to purchase and all parties involved are happy, it's a deal. Then Musima says, unfortunately, there's nothing unfortunate, Musima. Unfortunately, only starting now, so I still need basic startup information. So maybe this could be a good time, Rieta, to share with everybody that we're doing a collaboration now in February where we'll be doing a class that starts off around getting started in property investing. Some people say, you know what, I'm so tired, I want to leave work, I want to generate a passive income, or I want to create another income stream. But I'm just tired of working only at my one job, and maybe I want to get a second one for whatever reason. This could be amongst somebody like yourself. So what we're going to be doing is talking about how to get started, like the very, very basic stuff, exactly how Fred was asking. So what is the deal? We'll start talking about all these different terminology that we throw around within property investing. I remember I, at one stage, used to think a property investor looked like a men in black. The men in black, their suits, white shirts, ties. I had this perception in my mind as to what a property investor looked like. And in this particular class that we are doing now in February, we're talking about getting started in property investing. Literally understanding those definitions. What do we call a deal? Why do we call it this? Why do we call it that? And then literally turning every stone that you could fathom right until the point where we start understanding what is a strategy, what goes into, finding a property that makes a strategy work for you. What is passive income? What is active income within property investing? We literally turn all of those aspects around. And what I'll do is, once we're done, down in the description below, you'll be able to find a link, and it will take you through to more information, like on a lot of detail, especially for somebody like Masima that says, you know what, I really just need startup information. Because in this class, we start addressing some of the beliefs and the failures that we've gone through, just like Rieta was talking about earlier, where she said, you know what, I had this belief system, and I needed to work through this belief system. I didn't believe that we could get a whole property and not put any money down. I didn't believe it until we did it. And then when we did it, I had the confidence to walk on air type of vibe, the concept where people often throw around using other people's money. We go into great detail. Where will you be able to get funding for certain types of deals? When I do also present this particular training, I also go into the information about, so what makes it a deal? I go into the information about the lessons I learned when I was learning more about property investing through the deals. I show you the deal, I tell you the story behind the deal, I break down the numbers around that, and we literally end off the session that we go through in understanding the deal calculator and what makes it so powerful. So that's really where, Musima, I believe it could certainly assist you, because you're looking for that startup information. So down in the description below, don't forget, click on the link where it says getting started in property investing, and you'll be able to read a lot more, hear what is on that particular page, and then it will give you the instruction on how you'll be able to join us now in February for this particular training. Sheila says, I am interested in student accommodation. Well, that is fantastic stuff, because some of them getting started processes on student accommodation is covered within the getting started in property investing, because we cover these different strategies. However, we are sitting here with a student accommodation guru. That's what I call her. That's what she is to me. And I've seen how Rieta effortless, well, it looks effortless, but she tells me Jen, I'm dying here. How she effortlessly goes through and she does her thing. I've seen it in real life. Yeah, I was her shadow while we're going through the student accommodation deals. I was her shadow when she was able to actually create that online course that we also do periodically. So it's definitely fascinating times ahead. So Sheila, down in the comments below, what we'll also do is put a link to student accommodation, just so that you can read up more about it and see that when we do that particular class, can you jump in on it? And all of those that are, all of you that are interested, just don't forget in the comments below, then you'll be able to get all the details.
What I just want to say to anybody interested in student accommodation, um, if you've never bought a property, if you've never gone through, if you don't understand zone, if you've never heard the word zoning before, then rather first do fundamentals before you come and do student accommodation, because student accommodation is really, it's an advanced strategy, and you need to understand property, because I don't cover the basic fundamentals that Jenna was talking about now. I don't cover that in my student accommodation training course. I literally jump into, these are the specifics for students. This is how you find students. This is how you manage students. This is how you, do disciplinaries. This is your house rules. But it doesn't talk to, okay, but I talk about what's the zoning, what it should be for students, but I don't say what is zoning, why is it important, what are all the lingos and all that there. So very, very important. If you are interested in doing student accommodation, make sure that you first just understand the fundamentals, and preferably you've bought a property before and rented out to normal tenants. It's fine. Now you're upgrading to students, or going a bit more complex to students, that's fine. But just make sure that you understand the fundamentals before you do student accommodation to get the most out of it.
Fantastic. I love that you added that, because there's a lot of times I'm guilty of this as well. I used to think, what if we just go and find a big deal, and then we solve a lot of life issues by finding a big deal? But you're right. It's getting to know the basics, the processes behind the basics, doing them so that you actually know you've got this foresight on, okay, I've dug my trenches, I put in my foundation. Yes, I'm corny like that. How's that for comparable, eh? A house learning. Anyway, so I dug my my trenches. I put in my foundation, and that's what the getting started in property investment is. Now, what Rieta is talking about is now going past that. So that is great insight. Sheila also says, what is the procedure to transform or turn my residential property into a student accommodation?
Um, you buy furniture and you get students to move in. It can be that simple, or it can be complex. It now depends. It depends on, what type of students do you want to turning your property into student accommodation is simple. Okay, literally, it's like you buy furniture and you get students to come into it. But now you have to ask yourself, okay, well, am I allowed to do that according
Yeah.
to council? Um, what type of students do I want? Do I need money every month to come in, or is it okay if I only get my money at the end of the year? Because then those are different types of students you want to target with bursaries, private students, NASFA students. They all come with their own pros and cons. So, which students do you then want to put into your property? How are you going to manage them? You have to do it yourself, probably, or do you need an agent? But good luck finding agents that deal with NASFA students. So now you see, so turning your property into student accommodation is simple enough, but it's the things that surround that we need to also just think about and implement.
Awesome stuff. And also, Sheila, Rieta dropped an awesome nugget earlier. The closer to the tertiary institution that you are, the better. And just remember, the more further you are, it may just be a bit of a difficulty for you. What? So maybe I don't know, Rieta, if this is the right time to say it, but I'm going to say it. Rieta does do like a 15-minute quick consultation around where you are. So what I'll do is in the comments on YouTube, I will then put in the link to that 15-minute free phone call that you could have with Rieta Sheila. And I'm sure that we could get a little bit more specific in the space that you're in. Trust me, 15 minutes is a long time to give you loads of information that is specific to you so that you can do some homework in and around student accommodation and actually start checking what is it that I will need to move to the next level. Do you have the basics in place, the getting started fundamentals? Do you, what is it that you've got in place in terms of property investing that will actually help you within the student accommodation space? So I remember I was answering Masimo when Masimo was talking about, you know, that unfortunately they need this basic information. So the one question I asked Rieta just now, just so that I can throw my 20 cents in about that question, okay? How's that a little bit cheeky? But I wanted to know that I'm servicing and answering everybody in the comments so that I know that we don't leave you out and we don't leave you for last. The one thing I want to say, I believe that within any subject, like Rieta said, taking action is imperative. When you are confused about it, don't be scared to start finding out from others. Hey, where is it that you started? I recall Rieta once saying, Jen, I was even petrified to call a real estate agent. I remember I was like, so what am I going to talk to the real estate agent about? Forgetting the basic stuff that this is still a house that we're buying. So my conversation doesn't necessarily have to be all that different. Because when we go and we buy property, and I've had experience in buying my own 2-bed, 1-bath, the primary residence that we're staying in, the farm that we enter, I've had this experience of conversation, but I never had it like structured out on these are the things I need to look out for. And I remember I asked the simple question, so what makes this person want to sell? And then the conversation just flowed. And then I felt like a hero. And then the next thing was numbers. Okay. So these numbers, what am I going to do with these numbers? We had an Excel book, I want to call it, right? Because it had 5 tabs on it that gave you the output at the end of this book. And it intimidated me like nobody's business. Okay. And then I said, okay, I need to wrap myself around that. When I was able to get over that, then I started realizing, just as Rieta said, those small movements in the right direction. Next best thing we were negotiating, next best thing we were signing offer to purchase. And that's when we started realizing, oh, it's not as complex as it sounds. It's a simple process. But it becomes difficult when we have to face our perception versus the reality that we're actually going through. So that would be my one piece of takeaway that I would encourage you all to do. And for those of you just like Masima, and everybody else that is here that is interested in getting started, uh, come through. Let us help you in the getting started space because that's something that we do very, very well. So, Retha, I'm just thinking we're on the top of the hour. Most times people are just like a bit tired by now. What are the parting words that we'd like to leave with everybody today?
I think that property it's a great investment vehicle, and it's the one thing you can put money in the stock market, and what is anybody going to loan you money to do that?
Mm.
No. But property is one of those things that you can. It's tangible. It's there. You can't put it. You can't be scammed out of it. You can't put a property into your pocket and fly to Brazil with it. So property is really it's a solid, tried and tested through the ages investment strategy, and
Okay.
as not you know maybe you strike it lucky and you buy something for 500,000 and you sell it for 10 million 2 months later. What's the chances of that? It's not a get rich quick thing. It takes time. So be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with the process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just know that whatever you do now is going to have fruits for you um, throughout the process if you have buy the right property, and then after uh, 20 years whatever, the compounding. Oh, and I made a video about that. The
Okay.
compounding properties of property investment, just there's very few things that can beat that, with the security that comes with it. Okay, yes, stocks. If you buy stocks in Google way back when, and it would have made you more money by now, but there's no security. You don't know, is that really going to go up?
Mm.
Is it not? Whereas with property, you have a tangible asset. So the reward that comes with the security, there's nothing that beats property. So if that's your passion, if that's something that you do, invest in yourself and get the education and just take action.
Awesome, awesome source. I love that nugget that you shared there, Retha. That is something definitely I believe is something to behold. And one of my one parting thought is I can talk a lot, so I'm not going to end up talking a lot. But my one parting thought is this. I remember there was a quote from Robert Kiyosaki, and he said that skills make you rich, not theories. And that's the one thing I can share is that over time, if there's one thing that you will learn about the team that we have put together, we're not teaching you from theory, we're teaching you from skill. And the evidence is clearly on social media, right here on YouTube. As we talk about it, we show you the things that we do. So just remember the next time when you're thinking, you know what, I actually want to get rich. Don't get money. Don't get theories. Get the skill so that you can put the skill in action, and you'll actually get further than where you are today. So Fred says, thanks, Retha. By maybe you said, by the way, it takes time. Is it like 1 or 2 years? I'm almost wanting to say there, Fred, it really goes back to you and the amount of energy that you put in. And maybe if you could be a slightly more specific with your question, is that on student accommodation, or is that on getting a property investment opportunity? What would that be that you are referring to?
Getting rich from property is going to take you more than 2 years.
This is true. Property investing is for the long haul. This is
Replace
very
your
true.
replacing your job income, your with if you're in a corporate job or whatever. 2 years is doable, depending on the amount of salary that you're earning. If you get the right property with the right returns for you. Student accommodation, 1 or 2 houses should be enough to get you out. Uh, but the get rich part, that is the other part, together with your energy. It's like, get rich for some people is more than for other people. So that will take more than 2 years. I can promise you that.
Fantastic, awesome source. So I'm trusting that we've answered you fairly there. So let's just see if Fred has to actually say anything. Doing the numbers is the tricky one for me. This is what Dudu says, especially when it comes to the lower cost housing. Okay, so where do you get stuck in that? Where do you get stuck in that, Dudu? What is tricky for you? So while Dudu answers that question, Fred says making a living from property. How long does that take? 1 or 2 years?
Yeah, and I mean that really can take between 1 to 2 years. I think that if you have the right type of property with the right returns, you know, and you have enough energy, like Jenna says, to do it and really focus on it, then yeah, 1 2 years could be more than enough um, to make a living basically from it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And also think about this, Fred. How much how much money do you want to make to potentially, if you're working, right? How much money do you want to make to have that as an income on a monthly basis? That's a very big question. Currently, do you have the finances and the means to actually acquire a property if you found a property today? If you found a property today, you did the numbers, and the numbers said, hey, we're going to be making money here. Do you have the finances in today's world to do that? So there's a lot of things that you must look at in terms of dependencies. And I want to give an example here is that sometimes we get into um, things like property and we want it to pay off right now, like straight away, right now, but we forget about the maths involved. Where am I getting my money from today? How long did I actually work to get the amounts of money I have today, whether it's a paid salary or not? So are you trying to replace, say, for example, a 20,000 Rand salary? How many properties? What is your strategy that is going to get you there? So when you answer all of these different variables, Fred, you get to that point on when property is going to actually start paying you. And I trust that both from Ruth and my perspective, that makes sense for you. Cool stuff. So I'm not too sure if Dudu is going to share anything further, but I know that doing the numbers, maybe the question could even be, so Dudu, how do you do the numbers that it actually becomes tricky for you, especially when it comes to lower cost houses?
Yeah, and I think doing the numbers doesn't matter whether you're doing it for lower or more expensive houses, whatever. They doing the numbers for the first time when you're starting out, it is tricky. You don't know, like, is this percentage correct? Is this amount correct? And you're so unsure, and you don't want to make a mistake because it's like, oh, if I think something is going to be 20,000 rands, but it's actually 100,000, then I'm going to be in trouble because now I can't do this thing. So I think that takes experience, and it takes a little bit of time, and somebody that can with experience that can have a look at it for you and question you on certain things to get the confidence with those numbers. Yeah, and that's basically, yeah, it can be tricky, especially when you're starting out. And even later on, I mean, even now, I'm always doing the numbers. I'm like, so TJ, what do you think? What's the variances that can happen? And then we do modeling, and we'll do different scenarios and things like that. So, but that just comes over with a bit of experience, and getting comfortable with the tools and the spreadsheets and whatever that you use, and knowing that that is set up correctly, and you can just start putting numbers in and it spits out a number for you. So yeah.
Definitely. And I agree with you because there's also sometimes I also, using somebody close by within the same discipline as you are as that bouncing board. For me, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the other day I was busy with an offer to purchase and I was like, teacher, just come quickly, quickly, please double check this offer to purchase suspensive conditions. I just want to make sure that I've covered. I was so certain that I covered everything. But there was something else that told me don't overlook the simple things. Having somebody there to say, sharp, it gives that person, gives a person, or rather gives me that confidence, like, yeah, I'm actually talking on the right path here. So Fred is happy. He says, thank you. It makes perfect sense. I'm so glad that we were able to serve you all this evening. And I trust, guys, that those of you that are wanting to start from the beginning, just like Musima is, go down into the description below here on YouTube. You'll find the link to the training. The training is happening right now in February, and we've already had the training classroom filling up. For others that are like Sheila, that are interested in like, hey, Rieta, let's just hear something about student accommodation. Let us do this thing. Have that conversation with Rieta down in the comments below. You'll find that particular link to Rieta's diary where she gives you that few minutes so that, you guys can go through stuff. Mlungisi Nkosi. Why does that name sound familiar? Let me not be naughty. With student accommodation and with the current COVID-19 pandemic, how is that strategy affected with remote learning? What is the alternative strategy to go into?
Guys, this cannot be a better time for students. Okay. It is absolutely crazy right now. I'm looking for more places to put students. University hasn't even started yet and I'm full. So it is an absolute nightmare, I think, for these students, because what has happened is that the university has said that at res they're only doing single rooms. So all of a sudden we already had lots of students not having space, and all of a sudden res is only taking 50% of what the capacity that they normally take in. And all of those students, they didn't. So you'll also see these news articles floating around saying, oh, there's no face-to-face learning this semester, and we're not going back to that. And then you read through the rest of the article and it says, but please do come to campus because we're going to have online physically distanced learning, meaning come to campus. So what? Where must they stay? You know what I mean? So those kids still need space. Um, and all of a sudden, res is only offering half the space they used to. And I am being flooded with requests for students to move into my property. So it is a good time in student accommodation right now. I can pick and choose the students I want.
So Mlungisi, I trust that that actually helps you. And of course, within the student accommodation, it is kitted up so that you don't have many students on top of each other, with all protocol that is observed and all the things that you need to have in place.
Cool.
Cool stuff. Let's see. Yes, Musima, the training will be done virtually. The reason it's done virtually is, for the situation that we're in right now with the pandemic. So it's going to be done in a Zoom call. So once you reserve your spot, you'll be sent the notification links. The notification link will allow you into the actual Zoom meeting room, and the session will also be recorded as well. And the bonus to that one is that you'll have the already pre-recorded training in the small modules that they come in. You'll also have access to that before the training, so at least you'll be able to go through some of the stuff in advance if you want to, and start preparing yourself with all the different questions that you may have. Awesome stuff. So I believe this is over and out from our side. I love the fact that you guys have stayed the long haul. I love the questions that have come through, and I trust that we were able to serve you in the best way possible with the questions that you have positioned. And the obvious thing, if you haven't already yet, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. I mean, after all, we're here on YouTube, right? Hit the notification bell so that you're notified of all the shorter videos that we do upload. And then you're also notified when we do already, like with this particular live training, when we schedule it in advance. And we do try our best, Riet and myself, to go live in this particular training space at least once every 2 months. So let's hope that 2021 we can see how we could do that once every month. I don't know, is that a challenge? Is that a challenge? Oh, I think that's a challenge.
You
Cool stuff.
said it.
I said it, so it shall be so. So otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, be safe, take good care. And if you like, I have not gotten enough of this, we'll put up a young playlist for you so that you can actually learn from some of the smaller videos where you can get started in property. So you take good care, and we'll see you on the flip side.